My name is Jason Dalcourt. I'm the NOFA Summer Conference Coordinator and happy to be here to host Jeanne Deignan-Kosmides and George Kosmides for this workshop titled First Aid Homeopathy and Rescue Remedy. We're glad to have you guys. Jeanne and George are coming to us from Baltimore. So they're streaming in from Baltimore. So I want to give thanks to our sponsors for helping us put on this event. We have various sponsors that I hope you will look into and support. They show us a lot of support annually and sometimes just for this event. And I hope that you will check them out as well as visit their websites, etc. We're very thankful for them. And we'd like to acknowledge that at this moment, I am broadcasting this workshop from southeastern Massachusetts, which is the land of the Wampanoags. And this entire conference, of course, you are attending. I am hosting. The presenters are presenting from land that was managed and inhabited before European colonization. Please take a moment to find your location on this map and honor those whose land you now occupy. I will also drop the link in the chat. This map is a wonderful resource. It's interactive. You can zoom down on it. So I will drop the link into the chat. You can visit it on your own time and enjoy it. It's a very nice resource. And without further ado, I hope you enjoy the workshop. Jeanne is a lay homeopath, a licensed psychotherapist and yoga therapist, biodynamic beekeeper and gardener, grandmother, and Bach flower practitioner. And George is a software engineer and a lay homeopath. So I welcome you. And I hope I got that right. And I turn it over to you guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you, everybody, for attending this, and welcome. I'm going to start about the first half of the, we have a number of lessons here, and I'm going to start the first half with a number of slides, going more into the theory and the background of homeopathy, and then Jeanne will pick up the latter half. Jeanne, well, I'll talk about her background in a second. So the title here is First Aid Homeopathy. Homeopathy is a very broad spectrum approach to a coherent, holistic healing system. And, but we're going to focus on first aid. We're going to go a little bit beyond first aid, but you know, this is primarily safe options that you have that you can practice on your own. And then we'll cover when you would want to go to a practitioner also.
Can I just say something? Sure. If you have any questions as we go along, please put them in the chat because we want this to be interactive. And if, you know, we're saying something and you don't understand or you want clarification, then Jason can tell us and we will stop. So, and answer your question.
And then also we've allowed time towards the end for a good amount of questions. So mainly from the first slides here, we want to emphasize that this is an education workshop. We're not prescribing, you know, nobody should be prescribing unless they're health practitioners. And this is not a substitute for proper medical care. However, we're educating so that people can learn more about it, and just using ourselves as examples over the past 35 years or more, We've used homeopathy quite effectively sometimes not as effectively. So the main thing is to study and read about it. And we have a number of resource links at the end. There are numerous local homeopathic study groups. And also there's the National Center for Homeopathy in the DC area. So this is about Jeanne's background. She'll talk about her background because it's extensive. And again, it's over 35 years. We've had some remarkable successes with homeopathy, and I'm more of a, just a dilettante following whatever Jeanne does, because Jeanne has a sort of a sixth sense, because of her education, a sixth sense about the remedies. So I'll talk a little bit, and then we'll give a number of examples as we go. We had some remarkable benefits from homeopathy when we were first married, and Jeanne can get into those. Our kids are in their 30s now, but while Jeanne was pregnant, and we were looking for something that's safe for pregnancy, and homeopathy, because it is so diluted, works well and safe for pregnant women. So for during pregnancy, and also for newborns, for children, there are a number of remedies that work quite with children. It works really well. You either get the remedy right or you don't, and you get very dramatic changes. Adults, we've got layers of stuff and whatever. Sometimes it's harder. I'll talk about myself, husband there. So there are a number of times I was very nauseous for a number of different reasons. One remedy called Nux vomica worked well. Arsenicum, which is derived from arsenic, worked quite well on me for a number of cases, mainly repetitive colds that I had and some other things. And pets, it worked on the dog for a while. A good friend of ours is a world-renowned homeopathic vet. And then Jeanne can talk about some of these others. Do you want to talk about some now or when you go?
No, I can go back when I'm going over the remedies.
Okay.
I'll mention a few.
Okay, so health, we always focus on the physical, freedom from pain, and some kind of homeostasis, good enough. Am I balanced enough? Can I function? And that's typically what we think of as health. We also, of course, and more, we look at our emotional health. We want to be freed from emotions that tie us down, just like we want to be freed from physical ailments that tie us down. And mentally also, clarity of mind, coherent thought, being creative, all of this together, I think we'd all agree, starts to fit a holistic, comprehensive view of health. Homeopathy looks at it a little bit differently. Homeopathy is very symptom driven. So are the symptoms not there? Is the person well balanced? Is the whole person balanced? And are there limitations, whether physical, emotional, or mental? Are they clearing up? Are they freeing up? And then maybe again at a holistic level, homeopathy talks about your constitution, your overall, all of it being in balance, the overall strength of the person, and are you constitutionally healthy? So what is homeopathy? It's safe, it's natural, it's complementary, it complements other systems well. In many ways, it's an energy medicine. It complements other energy medicines, complements allopathic, regular conventional medicine well. You break your leg, of course you want, in the ER to set it. Or if you need a heart valve replaced, of course you need that done. But are there things that homeopathy can do to help encourage that or alleviate that, or maybe even avoid the necessity of some of it? And yes, it can do that because it treats the whole person and it looks at everything involved with the person. A homeopath will spend an hour and a half with you or more taking a case and understanding what it is. You go for a physical ailment, they might spend a lot of the time focusing in on some of the mental issues, emotional issues, knowing that the remedies address multiple levels of those. So homeopathy was started over 200 years ago, and it's got a huge, and I mean huge amount of empirical, evidence-based, dramatic knowledge. There's a massive knowledge base. It's scientific. I'm an engineer by training. I'm very rational, very evidence-based, and homeopathy fits this really well. There are a couple myths about homeopathy, that it's always, always, always safe. It's always safe, except you can overdo it. You can create other reactions. It's not herbalism. You can use herbs to make the remedies. It's sort of like vaccines, but it's not really a vaccination. It's not a placebo, even though many people will say that. And like I said, it's very scientific. It's evidence-based, very empirical-based, with a knowledge base that's over 200 years old. It's well established, and it's based very much on one simple principle: the law of similars. Homeo in Greek means the same. So and pathy means suffering. So the same thing that would cause suffering could help heal you. That's the law of similars. Hippocrates first talked about it. Other ancient cultures talked about it, but it wasn't until Samuel Hahnemann, a German chemist in the late 1700s, really sort of discovered the principles behind it and made them very systematic. In the early 1800s, it came to the US. It flourished for a while, then it sort of died off, then it flourished again, and it did quite well at the beginning of the 20th century. The AMA was formed as an allopathic approach to medicine, and one of the first founding principles in the AMA doctrine, if you look it up, was to stop the influence of homeopaths so they could promote their approach to things. So Mark Twain was a big fan. There were a number of people that were big fans, and again, because it worked, it worked quite well. As an example, in 1918, during the Spanish flu, well, it was called the Spanish flu, but what's known as the pandemic in 1918 and 1919 in the United States, the average physician lost greater than 20% of their patients. They lost them, they died. There were many, many homeopathic physicians around at that time also in the US and Great Britain, and they had a mortality rate of somewhere around 1 to 2%. So now that's been disputed. There are different ways to read that, but that's generally accepted. And again, they're treating the whole person. Right now, by the way, just a small footnote, there's some strong experts, physicians, practitioners that have approaches to COVID. Not saying anything at all about that, except that, some highly, highly experienced people are approaching that just like they approach other serious illnesses. But we're talking about first aid. The remedies are non-suppressive. Sometimes you need suppressive. If I'm being overwhelmed with some really bad reaction, my throat's swelling up, maybe I really need a steroid to suppress that. But in general, from a first aid standpoint, can I do something that's non-suppressive, non-addictive, non-toxic, very gentle? Again, babies. So, for instance, and Jeanne will talk about this more, but apis is a remedy, a homeopathic remedy made from honeybees, and that remedy works quite well on bee stings, but it works on other similar symptoms, swelling of throat, etc. There are times when what we'll do first, if somebody were to have swollen throat, first we would do apis. And again, Jeanne can tell a story where she had a remarkable incident.
Okay.
We lived in Rockport, Mass, and our neighbor, 10-year-old, was bit by a bee, and one leg swelled up so bad, the kid was screaming and screaming. One leg was massively swollen, and the mother bundled her up to take her to the Gloucester emergency room. And while she's leaving, Jeanne gave the daughter apis, the homeopathic remedy, apis. They rushed off. 10 minutes later, they're in the ER. The ER doctor takes the child in and comes back out and says to the mother, listen, I don't want to charge you for a visit if it's not necessary, but I can't tell which leg is swollen. They look fine to me. And the girl had stopped crying as soon as Jeanne gave her the remedy. The swelling went down within 10, 20, 30 minutes. So then in that case, it worked really well. Now, sometimes, obviously, it might not be the right remedy, might not be the right conditions. And obviously, then, of course, you want Benadryl or an EpiPen or,
Right.
obviously something. You don't want to take any chances. But again, if you can do something that's natural and gentle and is going to calm the situation down, the girl stopped crying, the swelling went down, and we'll talk about some of the mechanisms. Again, pregnant women, babies. When our son was newborn, the first hour, I'll tell you a story about that. So Dr. Hahnemann talked about the law of similars. Like things can cure similar like symptoms. And Hahnemann very much believed in a single remedy. What is that one remedy that will address numerous symptoms that a person has, and a very minimal dose? Totally the opposite of what we do normally. Normally we need a lot of something. 10 days of an antibiotic or something. But homeopathy is, if you can just make it work with one remedy and you see a change, just do that and then see what happens. If you need more, do a little bit more. We're just nudging the immune system here. And again, we'll talk about the mechanism in a few minutes, but we're just nudging it. If we've made a change, let it go. It's working. Trust it. Okay, so the law of similars, again, like cures like. The second bullet there, a substance that can cause symptoms when you take in a gross higher dose could possibly cure those very same symptoms in an unhealthy person if it's taken in a small dose. So as an example, I'll just give an example. Belladonna. Belladonna, and Jeanne again knows the remedies instinctively, but belladonna, of course, if we take belladonna, it's a poison. You take the belladonna plant, and at first what'll happen is at a small amount you're taking it, first your cheeks will flush, they'll turn red. This is well known. The whole etiology of this is well known. And then you'll get, and it comes on very quickly, and you'll get a headache, and it's a searing headache, usually in the front. And then a little bit, you take a little bit more, you'll get massive congestion, and you'll get,
That's the raw form.
That's the raw form of belladonna.
Yeah.
Now, using the law of similars, a homeopath will say, those are pretty dramatic symptoms. Again, we've got hundreds of years of these cataloged. So if we dilute that 1 to 100, and then dilute that 1 to 100, and dilute that 1 to 100, we're 1/10,000th, 1/100,000th of that. There's essentially almost no belladonna in there. If I, or when our babies were little, had red cheeks and it came when sunlight and they get congestion and you can tell they've got a headache up here, I've seen it numerous times. One dose of belladonna, highly diluted, ultra safe, there's nothing in it. I turned around once where someone's up in the middle of the night, he was a year old, crying in his crib and whatever. I took the remedy down, put one tablet in his little mouth. He was crying half the night. He stopped crying. I put the remedies away up in the closet, and I got his blanket, looked at him. He'd stopped crying very gently. He had fallen asleep. This was after 2 hours of crying and congestion and whatever. So what can homeopathy treat? Infections, inflammation, panic, anxiety. It works. And first aid, colds, coughs, flus, childhood illnesses, autoimmune diseases, pains, muscle pains, neck pains, pains in my back when I can't get to a chiropractor, pregnancy. Again, it's one of the few things. Herbs, many of them you don't want to take when you're pregnant. Homeopathy works well along with other things. And here's a list. We're not going to go through this, but muscular and skeletal stuff, neurological, internal asthma. When our son was asthmatic, it worked quite well a number of times, not all the time. High blood pressure, these are things that you really want a practitioner to deal with. And Jeanne will tell her story with amenorrhea, dysmenorrhea, and farther down, infertility. But on the right side, mental and emotional, again, panic, depression, anxiety, grief, things like that. That's part of the whole person. It can be part of a first aid remedy. The 10-year-old was panicked. She was crying, freaked out. Okay, so how does it work? Well, in essence, homeopathy talks about the vital force. This is the life force that we have within us. When it's balanced, everything's good, everything's cool. When this energy is balanced, whether it's called chi or hara or internal vibrancy or any number of things, or the homeopaths talk about the vital force. If your vital force is weak, sick, you need to tune it up. You need to kind of get on the right thing that kind of causes it to wake up, to nudge it. Often, it's the right remedy. You're seeing a reaction. You're seeing a physical change, emotional, mental change. I'll speak for myself. It doesn't always work for me, but when I get the right remedy, I'll note first, maybe if I have a cold or a flu, I'll start to feel better. I'll get up. I'll kind of walk around, still feeling rotten, but better. And maybe an hour or two later, some of the physical symptoms start to clear and I'm sort of better. A day later, I'm like, I know that I've shifted and I'm coming out of it. Remedies, they can be made from plants and herbs. They could be made from the animal kingdom, the parts of an animal body. Apis is made from ground up bees. Minerals, arsenicum, arsenic is, it's part of a mineral. Vaccines, and we can talk about that. Other poisons, belladonna, for instance, which is a poisonous plant. Chemicals, and other things as well. So how do they make them? This process of diluting them is called potentizing. I'm making it more potent, sort of contradictory. I'm making it more potent by diluting it. But it's not just that I'm succussing. Succussing, I'm shaking it, which actually they found, again, makes it stronger. It kind of gets it, you know, the mechanism working. And what do? We prove, we do a proving. Again, we'll take out the real substance, the gross level, belladonna or poison ivy or something, take a tiny bit of it, and I'll break out, and obviously, and itches. Take a tiny bit more, and man, my joints will start to hurt. Take a tiny bit more, and I can't move very well once I've sat down. And sure enough, if somebody comes to you and says, man, my arthritis is bad on the right side, I don't have any skin eruptions, but my joints hurt, one of the first things a homeopath will start to think about is the poison ivy based remedy, again, diluted 100,000 times or more. So that's this proving of it. So this slide, it's blurred down there, but we'll talk about briefly the effect of it. So let's say, again, poison ivy, which is called Rus toxicum, the Latin name. Rus tox is the homeopathy name. So we'll take poison ivy, grind it up in a lab, pharmaceutical grade, cleanliness and all that. They'll dilute it in distilled water, 1 to 100, or 1 to 10, or 1 to 1,000. That's the first beaker. Then they'll do that again. They'll take 1/100th of that, put in the second beaker, dilute that 99 to 1, and then do a next and the next and the next. So again, you're 1 to the 100th or 1 to the 1 million, 1 part per million. And often there's like nothing left there. It's very, very sick, except somehow the energy or the molecular vibration is there. The mechanism.
I'm having trouble connecting to the internet. Take a look at the help
Oh,
section of
that's
your Alexa app.
Alexa. Did I just say Alexa? Okay. So the potencies and the strength of a remedy has to do with how many times it's been diluted and shaken vigorously. Shaken. X is 1 to 10, and C is 1 to 100. So 6X means I've diluted it 1 to 10, that's once, then again 1 to 10, then again 1 to 10, 1 to, so for those of you that know math, 10 to the 6th power, which is 1 out of 1 million part. Or 30X is that same process, but 30 times. And for first aid at the bottom there, we use 6X, which is sort of pretty gross level there, 12X, 30X, or often 30C.
So the 30C is beyond that.
Yeah, 30C, if you go to 30C or beyond, you've diluted so much you're beyond Avogadro's number.
Yes,
So there's physically nothing there, except because of the way they do it, something is being picked up. As an electrical engineer, I'm still not sure what's being picked up, but it is something down at the atomic level, and it has to do with higher frequencies or something. I'm not sure, but it works. Okay, so there are over 2,000 remedies. And again, and Jeanne will show you, but there are reference books. Some of them that she has are 6 volumes that have been collected over the last 200 years. They've proven everything from, you know, that can be ground up, every plant that can be ground up, duck livers, you know, whatever. And they've tested them on people, very diluted, and then tried out, and they have a remarkable repertoire of things that work for many illnesses and combinations of illnesses. So out of over 2,000 remedies, there are about 30 to 50 that are considered Polycrest. Polycrest means many uses in Greek. So the idea is maybe it's the 80-20 rule. 80% of the time, these 30 remedies, if you know those 30 remedies, 80% of the time you'll be able to get a lot of things in the first aid world. If I have some bizarre tumor mixed with bleeding out of just my left ear and blurriness and whatever, and I go to homeopathy, they might use some very obscure remedy that's not a Polycrest because they know this stuff. But for first aid, we stick with the Polycrests. And Jeanne's going to go over a lot of these, but this list is sort of the top 20 or whatever it is. And these on the right, the tubes you see there, you buy them in the health food stores, buy them on Amazon. And the remarkable thing is they're cheap, you know, $6, $8 for one of those tubes that has enough to last you maybe, you know, I don't know, 30 doses. Why is it so cheap? Because and this is all FDA approved, by the way. The FDA approves the labs that make this, very much so, ultra pure pharmaceutical grade, but they'll dilute. So Apis, the second one, you know, they'll dilute the ground up B, however they make that, so much when they make one batch, ultra pure batch, and make the tablets out of it, you know, they're making a decent profit at $8. But for us, it's like, you know, you could treat a flu or indigestion or nervousness before you take an exam or something that we've found. So in the homeopathic world, they very much look at acute versus chronic diseases. Acute, a short duration, it's not chronic, it's not ongoing, it doesn't have a history. Oh, I got food poisoning, I've got a cold, I've got poison ivy, I got bit by this bug, you know, whatever. Whereas chronic, just solely using myself as an example, when we lived in Rockport, I was getting a flu and bronchitis every 3 weeks. I mean, I was 28 years old, and it's like, oh my goodness, what's going on here? Something is going on here. I went into Boston, into Cambridge, and one of the world famous homeopaths is there. His name is Richard Moskowitz, and he just spent an hour and a half with me, and halfway through, he said, yeah, I think I've got it. He gave me a remedy, and again, I'm an empiricist, I'm an engineer. He gave me a remedy. I went home, back to Rockport, still feeling crappy and still with this bronchitis and whatever. But about a day and a half later, I got my weights out and I started lifting weights again, still with bronchitis. And I went outside, even though it was so cold, I had to be wrapped up with 50 things. I'm like, wait, I'm feeling pretty strong. I only need a sweater out here or something. And then gradually my sore throat, my bronchitis cleared up. I have to tell you, that broke it. 3 weeks. It went on for 6 months like that. And this broke it.
But that was a chronic.
That was chronic. So that's an example of chronic. That's not first aid. You would go to, you know, a practitioner. So,
I'm doing this.
okay, so Jeanne, again, it's in her blood.
Can I interject?
Sure.
Yes, please, just.
Before you move on to from those products, there's a question in the chat.
Sure.
That says, how do you know the purity of those products, and are all brands good? What is the filler for the tablet?
Yeah, that's a good question. Those are all good questions. So the FDA has something called the Pharmacopoeia, which is the Latin name, basically mean guidelines for pharmacies. Don't.
Oh, okay, go backwards. It's
there.
there.
Yeah. Jeanne's going to address it, but
okay.
the FDA has the U.S. approved Pharmacopoeia. It has 2 divisions in it. One is allopathic medicine, bare aspirin and streptomycin and, you know, a cancer
Prozac.
chemotherapy and all of that stuff. That's in that one branch, approved, inspected by the FDA. The other branch is the homeopathic pharmacopoeia. And again, all labs that produce these must meet these FDA standards for purity, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, inspections, all that. So there are probably 5 main manufacturers that are out there. And again, you see them on Amazon, you see them in the health food stores, the well-known ones, Boron, Highland, Borky, Standard, Homeopathic, Labs.
Can I tell a story?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So there's a homeopathic lab in West Virginia, Berkeley Springs, and they actually were shut down temporarily because they weren't meeting the standard of purity. And so they were shut down. They had to go through a lot to come up to standard, and now they're back open again. So they are actually, people go in and they make sure that the remedies are made pure to the recommendations that they're supposed to be made.
As far as the filler, they're usually made from milk sugar, lactose, although they have obviously non-lactose tablets as well.
And tinctures.
And tinctures, liquid tinctures that you can get. And they're different, and she's going to talk about different ways to make those. So that's the purity, and we're very comfortable with the purity of it, and the filler, how they're made, either a liquid tincture of the liquid actually that comes from the pharmacy, or they mix it with different fillers to make tablets. Or are there any other questions, Jason?
That was it for now. And just want to give you guys a time check. It is 7:45 right now.
And we go to 8:30, right?
We go to 8:30, yeah.
Yep. Okay. Okay. Hi. I'm Jeanne, and thank you, George. I just want to show you. Can you see, Jason? Can you see this book?
No.
Yeah.
This and this book and this. They're listed at the end, but it's good when you're going to be doing some homeopathy. When you're doing some homeopathy, it's good for you to have some kind of a beginner book. This was the first book that I used. It's by Dr. Panos, Homeopathic Medicine at Home. And so it's good to go online and try and find a beginner's homeopathy book or join a homeopathic study group, because it takes a while to sort of get up and running with the cases. When you're doing a case, a homeopathic case, it's very important to remember the difference between the chronic and the first aid. So when you're doing a case, if you find that a person is telling you this has been happening for a long, long time, and it involves one of the vital organs, like it involves the heart or some internal organ, and the complaints you feel are pretty severe, you, as a first aid person, wouldn't want to be treating that, okay? Just want you to know that. You want to listen mostly, and you want to ask open-ended questions. You want them to tell your story, and you really want to hear it. You don't want to say, to them, you have a headache, right? Right, because because you're thinking, oh, I'm going to give them this certain remedy because they have a headache. But you want to listen to what they're saying because maybe they don't have a headache. So you use questions like, what's happening? How? Please tell me more. And you observe the person, okay? Let's see, how do I change this one right here? Okay, so I'm gonna skip this and because I want to go back to this. And Jason, these slides, if that's okay, will be available. So if anybody wants to have these slides, they're welcome to have them, okay?
Great.
So if somebody wants them and wants to go back, they can have that. Okay, so you're going to ask 4 different questions to yourself and about these remedies. What remedies should I take? What remedies should I give the person? What's the potency? How many and how long should I take them? And how do I take this remedy? So what remedy should I take? It depends on what their symptoms are, what potency, we already talked about doing, probably it's best to stick with either a 12 or a 30 potency, whether it be X or C, doesn't matter. And how many and how long should I take? Well, you want to take 3 to 5 little pellets each time you take them. And it's very important that you take the minimum dose, right? So you give it to them once, give them to it twice, maybe if it's acute, like if they fell down and or they've been working in the garden and they're really achy. But after the 3rd time of giving it to them, if nothing's happening, then if there's no change, then you don't have the right remedy. So you don't want to take it more than a couple of days, or like 3 or 4 times, because if you keep taking it, then you could prove it. So you want to see that change in the first couple of times that you've taken it. Okay, so you want to observe, you want to learn enough about homeopathy, so you want to read about it and learn about the remedies, and you want to match the observations with the symptoms. And so we're going to go on to the actual remedies. Okay, so let me see. You want to listen to what's the main problem? What are they coming to you for? What's the main thing they're coming to you for? And you want to listen to that, and you want to have a notebook. When I first started homeopathy, I had a notebook and I would write down all the symptoms, and we'll go on and look at them, but you want to find out things like, are they thirsty? Do they have strong likes and dislikes? You want to understand the whole person. That's very important when you're doing the remedies. Okay, so notice that doctor who's writing things down. That's very important. So you keep a medical journal. You listen carefully to, it might be your child, might be your wife or your husband or your partner, your good friend. You ask open-ended questions like, when did this begin? What makes it worse? And you list, very important, the strongest symptoms. Got to listen for what's the strongest one. It really itches. That might be the strongest one. So you got to listen to that. And also what's very important with homeopathy is what we call the keynote symptoms, or the most unusual symptoms. Okay, that's really important. And I will give you in the Materia Medica that I have here, the keynote or the unusual symptoms. So you really need to have one of these books or something online. You can do it online that has a list of the symptoms. So you really need to have a repertory. to find the remedy that will act curatively. We talked about the law of similars, so I won't go back over that, like with arnica. Okay, so we already talked about that. Taking the remedies, it's really important that you don't take the bottle and touch it to your mouth. It's really important that that stays away from you, because it has a certain energy in the homeopathic remedies that you want to just take separate yourself. So avoid placing it, all the remedies in your hand when you're giving it to another person. And you don't want to have strong, like you don't want to, well, like eat a whole bunch of garlic before you take it. You want to have like a clean mouth and a clean palate before you take it. You also can do something called plussing. And plussing is you put it in water, the tablets, like 5 to 10 in water, and you stir it, filtered water, and then you just take it, you know, spoonful by spoonful. Okay. For me, even though they say take 3 to 5 pellets, the exact number of pellets is not crucial because you're working with energy here. You're not working with exact pellets. So don't worry if 8 of them come out, okay? Remedy can be taken under the tongue or plussed in water. And when you sense, can ask like your child, or maybe you give it to your cat. I've had a lot of success with my cats, and I give it to my cat, and you can observe, oh, look, the cat looks like it's getting more energy. You can sense or see improvement, and then you reduce and stop taking it altogether. Repeat it only when needed. That's very important. And because if you take it too often, you can get sort of more of an aggravation. Some people are more sensitive than others. So the way the vital force is, here's the vital force. You're feeling nice and strong. And then if you get sick or you feel weak, you get off balance. Then you want to take a remedy. It brings you back upright. If you take too much, whoop, you can go over to the other side. So that's why they're saying you have to take just enough for yourself, okay? If you have an aggravation, stop the remedy, wait, start again, or maybe take a new remedy. Some people say that strong things can antidote a remedy. Incense, strong smoke, mints, strong coffee. So you just want to, when you're sick, you just want to try and stay as clean a palate as possible when you're taking the remedies. So Materia Medica is a complete list of the homeopathic remedies that Heinemann came up, and now it's grown and grown, like George says. There are volumes of them, but you, as a first aid person, you want to stick with the Polycrests. And as we said, they're all regulated by the FDA, strictly regulated by the FDA. Okay, so this next thing now is I'm going to be talking about, this is like a Materia Medica that I'm going to be giving you with some of the remedies. What time is it here? Okay, so this to me is like the most important remedy. I love aconite. As soon as you start feeling weak, it's actually, I mean, I know we're not going to talk about COVID here, but everything I've read from Dr. Rothenberg and Paul Herskew, who are out in the Amherst area, Massachusetts, to people all over the world in India, they say aconite's the first remedy you start with if you start, but it's the first remedy you start with if you're feeling weak on any level. Take aconite. And I'll tell you, if I'm feeling off and I take aconite, it helps me.
For me, I'll just add that, you know, like we've talked about with the emotional component, if I feel anxiety, like, oh no, I'm a little bit of a hypochondriac, and I'm like, oh no, you know, I think I might be getting something. I think my throat, or I've got this major project due at work, and I've just got this sort of overall anxiety, and I think I'm weak and getting weaker, and I'll take aconite, and I'll notice I shift later on. Hey, I didn't get a cold. Now you can't disprove a negative, but you know, I didn't get it, and so I just feel better.
So aconite, as George just said, there's a lot of anxiety and fear about that, which lives in our world today. So I've been feeling over the past several months, I've taken aconite a few times when I've had some anxiety and fear, because that can affect your immune system. It's a first remedy that you take when you're feeling something, anything, feelings of restlessness, sudden onset, and the modalities are important. You're better from warmth and you're worse at night. Okay, so the modalities are important. Oops, I'm going backwards. Okay, this is the one we've already talked about, apis, made from the bee. So the most important thing to remember with the bee sting is that there's a sense of indifference and an apathy that you're feeling, and that you're better from cool water, cold applications, and that the actual physical symptoms are that, of course, you have stinging skin, red, swollen. Just think of a bee sting, but you also can use it for other things besides a bee sting. Arnica actually is really the most popular. I mean, I'm sure all of you have heard of arnica. It's everywhere now. And I know a number of nurses who actually carry arnica with them and use it a lot. Now, I have a story of when we lived in Gloucester, and there was a fisherman. He would always go out, Gloucester fisherman. He was young, and he really had a lot of aches and pains. And I recommended that he take some arnica, and it really did help him with the aches and pains. Yes?
There's a question in the chat that someone is wanting you to explain modalities.
Modalities just mean what makes it better and what makes it worse. So that's something that's very important. So you like with arnica here, are the modality of better lying down. Okay, so if you hear somebody saying, I'm better lying down and I'm worse if I'm in damp weather. If you hear that, then you can think of it. Another modality of arnica that I know, and I should have put it in here, is arnica people that need arnica don't necessarily want to be touched. You know, if someone's really achy in their back and you say, let me give you a massage, most people like that, right? They say, yeah, massage that. If a person says, no, please don't touch that, it just really aches really bad, then you can know that's an arnica symptom. So did that explain that? Well, I'll go through the modalities with each one and you'll see.
She said it was a question from Deb, and she said, got it, thanks.
Okay, so Arsenicum album is the remedy, even though it's very hard to do scientific research on the kind that we do with evidence-based studies because homeopathic remedies are very individually prescribed to somebody. But with first aid remedies, there's usually a general understanding. And for our Senecum album, if someone has food poisoning, what'd you say?
Go to the next slide.
Oh. If somebody has food poisoning, you just go to our Senecum album. And it's interesting what my husband said about being a hypochondriac. This is the remedy for hypochondriacs. So that's why I smile when he says, I'm kind of a hypochondriac. This is his remedy a lot of times because this is a remedy that goes with that if you have a lot of that. But as you can see, the physicals, food poisoning, vomiting, cramps, and for arsenicum, let's say you've eaten something, you have a stomach ache, you don't want to throw up, but you know it'll help you, take some arsenicum and you'll get rid of it, and then you'll go back to bed. And as you see, the modalities, you're better with small sips of warm drinks, heat, worse cold and wet weather.
I'll just add here that, so this is the overall profile sort of distilled down of a remedy like arsenicum here. But for first aid, again, we're not health practitioners. For first aid, you don't have to match all of these. If somebody has food poisoning and cramps, you're not going to say, well, wait a minute. What about wet weather? Are you afraid of the dark?
Yeah.
You know,
or maybe they don't want a warm drink or something.
However,
so, yeah.
for colds, arsenicum works well for me. It might be the hypochondria, might be the restlessness, which I get plus the sore throat. And so you hit a couple of these and it really sticks out at you.
That's a good point, George. What George is saying is you want the three strongest symptoms. So you're not going to match all of these symptoms to give arsenicum. You only have to match the top three of them, okay? That's very good, George. So belladonna, we went over belladonna, and here are it's sudden. Belladonna comes on very sudden. That's the first thing you want to think of. I have a homeopathic doctor. I highly recommend you have a homeopathic doctor. As a matter of fact, I have two homeopathic doctors. And when I call up, when I was much younger, and if I had a bad headache, he said to me, the first remedy you think of when you have a bad headache is belladonna, and especially if it's throbbing and if it comes on sudden. And as you can see, the modalities here, you're better not lying down, right? So if you're lying down and you're better, you might not want to think about that. And it's very bad. You don't like noise or movement. Okay, I'm gonna move kind of quickly because I know we have a lot of these to go through and I don't know how much time we have left. Yeah, so chamomilla is a very good remedy for children. If you have young children, you want to think of A, B, C. You want to think of aconite, belladonna, and chamomilla. Those three, ABC, for little ones. And the keynote, as I was saying, these all have different keynotes. The keynote for chamomilla is one cheek is red and the other one is pale. You say, oh, look, it's red. Oh, that's pale. That's interesting. The other keynote for chamomilla is they want you to pick them up and then they want you to put them down. It's like you're
They're crying and
They're
colicky
crying and help pick me up. And then, no, don't touch me, don't come near me. So they're not the kind of person that you, little ones, or anyone really, that you want to be around. You're like, oh, my kid's driving me crazy.
But chamomile is dramatic, especially in little ones.
Yes, and I will tell you a story about chamomile. I had an operation and I had to be put under anesthesia, and it was a complicated surgery, and I was in under anesthesia for longer than usual because of complications. And when I came, I was having a hard time coming back, right? I was having a hard time coming back. And when I came back, I was very much not myself. I was like, I yelled at my son-in-law. I said, give me that. No, I don't want that. And I was sort of scaring the people in the room. And my homeopathic doctor was there, and he said, give her chamomile. And my husband, George, went over, got the chamomile. Do you remember that? He gave me the chamomile. I was like in a fog.
Right there in the hospital.
Right in the hospital.
Totally not herself.
Gave me the chamomile. It was like, wasn't it?
It was
like that.
amazing.
And my husband was so surprised. He said, should I give her more? And he said, no, just that once. Okay. Gelsemium is a wonderful remedy. It's also another remedy that has been highlighted and talked a lot about with the COVID. And it's derived from jasmine. And it's the remedy that you want to think of when you get the summer flu or the summer cold. And the keynote for gelsemium is you become lethargic, which is something that happens sometimes with the COVID or flus. You become like, oh, I don't care. And you just, you especially if you're like a high energy person, and then you become lethargic. Also, it's a remedy, very good remedy if you have test anxiety, if you have any kind of anxiety about speaking, about going out there in public. It's a really good one. And this is an interesting modality. You feel better after urinating. So see, that's sort of an unusual modality. So that's why I'm saying some of these are unusual. The headache, you have a tight band around your head. I mean, each of these remedies, when I was going to school to become a homeopath, we used to have dramas where we would play out the remedies and dress up and play them out. And so each of these have a personality to them. So I can actually basically see the gelsemium personality, see the different personalities. Okay, hypericum is a wonderful remedy if you have nervousness, or if you have any kind of nerve pain, like anything to do with your teeth. If you have, like, let's say you have to get to the dentist because you have dental pain, and you take hypericum, but you do not, and I highlight, you do not want to take hypericum before you get Novocaine, because the two of them sort of work against each other, and the Novocaine might not work. So only take the hypericum if you're not gonna get to the dentist till the next day or something. Hypericum is St. John's wood. We all know what St. John's wood can do to help calm us and to gently massage our nervous system. Ledum is a very, very good remedy for puncture wounds. So if you step on a nail, if you have any kind of a wound that you feel like like sometimes it's good for the poison ivy, poison oak, but mainly for a puncture wound. Like if you, like, well, yes, some injections, you can take Ledum and that will help you. And it's better if you put cold compresses on it, and worse from the heat of the bed. Okay, and this is a very big remedy. If you're using it chronically, it's a really good remedy for people who are alcoholics. It's, but of course that's not first aid. It's a very good remedy for type A addictive personalities. So it's a remedy. It's one of the greatest Polycrests, and I'll just tell you a quick story with this. My daughter was doing her study abroad in Nicaragua, and she made a mistake, and she ate something. She thought it was boiled or something, but she ate something, and she got a really bad, what do you call those worms, or those intestinal worm things, or intestinal bite. She was very, very, very sick, and she took all kinds of medicines and stuff. But when I heard her remedies, her symptoms, I just could tell that it was Nux Vomica. And I said to her boyfriend, who's now her husband, give her Nux Vomica, and it worked. So move on. My husband's telling me to work on. This is a great remedy for poison ivy, for itchiness, for, it's a remedy that I take because as I'm getting older and older, I have joint pains, and it really helps my joint pains. Like sort of when you wake up in the morning, if you're a little older and you have that sort of rusty gait, sort of feeling like you have to move to, warm yourself up. Rust Talks will help you. Okay, so, and it's good for poison ivy. If the modality is warm applications, if it's better for warm applications, if it's worse for warm applications, don't give Rust Talks. There's other remedies for it.
That says worse with cold.
If it's better from warm,
yeah, okay.
It's worse from cold.
It's uncanny. If you'll notice, next time you get poison ivy, if you put cold on it, it'll either make it extremely itchy or soothe it. And sometimes, different people, different times, you have poison ivy, you put warm on it, it'll make it itch like crazy, and cool will calm it. And each one, there's 3 different remedies they use, but Rust Talks is usually we use for poison ivy.
Okay, here are the 3 ones that you want to think about when you have puncture wounds and stings. Apis, Ledum, Hypericum. And Thuja is a remedy that you want to take once you take a vaccine. If whatever vaccine or flu shot or whatever you're taking, Thuja helps balance out the vital force. So whenever you go for your flu shot, or whenever you go for, hopefully when this vaccine comes out, if you're going to take it, then get Thuja and take Thuja along with it. This is what you want to use or think about when you have cuts, bruises, and scrapes. Arnica, of course, dislikes being touched. Like I mentioned, calendula, you apply on the outside, lots of calendula products you can buy. Hypericum, healing for nerve wounds. Ledum is a very good remedy for Lyme, just so you know that. Ruta Graves, also good for the joints and for gardeners. Ruta is a very, very good. I have a massage therapist who takes Ruta a lot to help her because she's working with her wrists and her body gets very sore. Staphysagria is also a very good remedy after surgery. If you have any kind of surgery, it's like your body's angry. What did you do to me? Staphysagria is a good one for after surgery. sprains and strains. Arnica again for overexertion. Now, if you have overexertion and arnica doesn't seem to help you, Bellis, which is the Latin name for daisy, is a deeper acting arnica, and it really does the trick. If arnica doesn't do it, it sort of does it all. Bryonia is a very good remedy. When I was studying, a doctor told us story about appendicitis, and of course that's not acute, that's not first aid, but it healed this person of appendicitis. It was amazing. But if you have somebody who just doesn't want to move, they're feeling sick, bryonia will really help them. Lead them, the wound area, you could be sweating and the wound area will feel cold. Russ talks, the keynote is Rusty Gate. And okay, so we've gone over some of them. Burns, calendula, surface, cantharis is also another remedy, very good remedy for burning. If you have urinary tract, you know, you're doing your cranberry juice and everything, but also think of taking cantharis. Causticum is really good for warts, and hypericum, any nerve danger. But what I think of when I think of burns is urticarians, when you have stinging and itching. Okay, sunburn, calendula, also aloe, but that's not a homeopathic remedy. Causticum, cantharis. Some of these, the ear problems, you have to be careful because it might not be first aid. It might be something a little more chronic. So you just have to have a judgment between what's chronic and what's first aid. But the first remedy you think of, first remedy you think of is ear problems is arnica. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm getting nervous because we're getting to the end. Aconite. That's the first one. You can get these slideshows and read over them. This is the first remedy that you take with flu. George mentioned duck liver, and that's the silicocylum. The influenza, the colds, dental problems. At the end is a biography. These are the three that I recommend. I also recommend that you join the Natural Center of Homeopathy. For homeopathy, yes. And you get a Homeopathy Today magazine, which is excellent, excellent, excellent. I can't say enough about it. And unfortunately, you only have 2 minutes, but if you want to say something about that.
So let me back up 1 second. So like Jeanne said, the National Center also online is a free site, ABC Homeopathy. And I go there, you type in the problem and the symptoms, and it helps narrow it down. So that's worth it. And I just want to point out back here, this is, again, we encourage you to get the slides. Influenza, it's good to know these. Sometimes it works well. Sometimes, again, it doesn't work for us, but sometimes it works well and it can be helpful. Similarly with colds, and there's subtleties in each one, and the books Jeanne mentioned talk about them. So talking about Bach flowers a minute. Edward Bach was a British pharmacist and a homeopath in the 1930s. And he sort of did a variation of homeopathy using just flowers. He identified 30 flowers, and what he would do to potentize it, he'd take a clear crystal bowl or a glass bowl with pure water and put the flowers, a specific flower, in the water, and somehow he said the water would absorb at a very subtle level, an emotional level. and he called these the remedies, the Bach flower remedies. And this is the book based on his work, and it goes over each
Can I just say
flower.
something?
Yes.
What Dr. Bach believed is that before you get to the physical illness, you go through mental and emotional, plays a vital role in your immune system. So if you kept strong mentally, emotionally, taking care of yourself on those levels, it would be harder for you to get physically sick.
So 38 different flowers, 38 different negative states, and he grouped them, and it's very systematic. Again, it's very gentle, very, very gentle. But we'll talk about rescue remedy. There were 5 flowers that he identified particularly and grouped them together for emergency situations, very high stress situations, before you're going in for an exam, or before you're going for your chemotherapy, or before, you know, whatever. Or when something dramatic is happening, and they work well for children. A quick story, our son, 33 years ago, when he was born at home. The birth went fine, everything went fine. Well, except that's my view, Jeanne. And he was born. However, he had a very low APGAR score, like bluish, very low muscle tone. I'm like, oh my God, call 911. Let's get this. And Jeanne said to our friend who was helping the midwife there, get some water and some rescue remedy. Comes in little bottles you get in the health food store, and a spoon. So I took the spoon, I put the drops of rescue remedy in the water, and I took the spoon with it on it, put it to his lips, and he goes, and he just kind of sucks on it. He took a deep breath before he was having trouble breathing, massive deep breath. He pinked right up, his muscle tone, lifts his head, looks around, nursed a little bit, and then very gently went to sleep, and everything was fine. So that was our dramatic story, but it's worked many number of times. Rescue remedy, it comes in boxes like this at the health food store with the little glass thing in it. And again, it's the 5 of the 38 flowers. This is a combination of the 5. One that has to do with stress, these 5 flowers. Loss of control, trauma, terror, bringing clarity. These 5 flowers, the remedies, the homeopathic remedies prepared from them, very good, very dramatic. I keep it in my backpack, keep it in meetings. I mean, I'm at a very senior level where I work, but I still sneak this.
Can I tell another quick story? No. Go ahead.
There's a question. Where do you buy the top most important of these?
Where do we buy rescue remedy?
No, the flowers.
I believe it's referring to the flowers. Where do you buy the top 5? Where would you source these?
So just to be clear, you can buy a kit with all 38 of the flower remedies, each individual one. And Jeanne does, she uses it in her psychotherapy practice sometimes, but rescue remedy is sort of the brand name of these 5 mixed together. So you don't have to buy a kit with 38 in them, or you could buy them individually and mix your own. You can certainly buy these in individual dropper things, but rescue remedy is the brand name of the Bach flower preparation that mixes these 5. So
you can get them in health food stores.
Any health food store, Amazon.
I think they even probably sell them at Walmart now and stuff, Amazon. Yeah. But the quick story I just want to tell you is that my son also, he was an interesting little guy, and he got really mad once, and we were going through something, and he said, and don't give me any of that rescue remedy because I want to be mad.
This is four years old.
Just showing that it really does work.
when he would have a meltdown, a very strong-willed little boy, when he would have a meltdown and he was moving, I couldn't get near his mouth just to put one drop in, you know. I'd put it, just drop it on his head.
Yeah.
And it was astounding. I mean, they should put this in guns or something and just spray it over an area and calm everybody.
There's another question. Agnes says, I might have missed it, but can you list the ways to take the remedies? I know you said the pellets, the drops. Is that all the ways? And then she says, not the specific ones, just in general.
You mean the homeopathic remedies?
Yes.
The homeopathic remedies, they usually come, do you want to get one? They usually, there's him. They usually come in a little glass vial, and you open it up and you drop, I'm going to take these anyways because I'm supposed to be taking these, and you put some in the cap and you open your mouth and you just put it in your mouth under your tongue, or you take a glass of water and you just could put 3 or 4 in water and you stir it with a spoon and you just take it with a spoon. And some people get the actual tincture, and then they can put the tincture in water or a tincture under their tongue.
So in water, it's good for a child, and just give them a little bit of the liquid. It tends to make the remedy work deeper and more gently when it's in water, mixed in water. Or we knew somebody who was paraplegic, and the person would mix it and just give it to them or rub it on their skin.
Does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you.
Oh,
Sure.
You're welcome.
Sure.
Hi. Anything else? Any other question? Because
we
we
done.
want to make
so
sure.
Any questions, we're glad to answer. We'll be here as long as people have questions.
And also you can put my email up, Jason, and if anybody has any other questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Yes, I can put your email there too.
You can put the email. I think the email's at the beginning of the slideshow. Do I need to send you? Go ahead.
It's also at the back of the program book. All the presenters' contact information is back there. So.
Oh, good. So any questions, I'll be happy to answer, and my husband too.
So why don't you tell the story, because we've got a minute, about when we were first married and first came across homeopathy.
Well, that's not first
Right.
aid. Well, this isn't first aid, but when my husband and I were first married back in 1981, I was told by a number of doctors that I couldn't have any kids. And so my husband came home from, he worked for a windmill company, and he came home and he said, my colleague said that there's a thing called homeopathy. And so I went to this homeopathic doctor because he recommended it. And he gave me this remedy. She gave me this remedy to take. She was from India, where a lot of homeopaths live. And now it helped me. And now I have, 2 kids. So it really did help me. It was
pretty dramatic, and that's a chronic case.
That was chronic.
After a gynecologist and acupuncture, all kinds of things that Jeanne had tried. And this homeopath worked, it was over 2 hours with her, and really got to something very deep. And that woke us both up. I mean, when she was pregnant with our daughter, we realized, and then that's when
started
Jeanne,
us on the path of becoming a homeopath. Yeah.
There's a couple more questions. One is, do you use the water for pets? I think this was a couple of minutes ago. Do you use the water for pets?
Do I use, when I plus remedy, do I use it for pets?
sure.
Yes, I use it for pets, because oftentimes if you try to give a cat something, or any pet, they spit it out. So I'll put it in their water dish, or put it, like with the homeopathy, I'll put it on the head of the animal with all the different Bach flowers.
There is great. There's also another question. Are there any good homeopathic remedies for sciatica?
Well, definitely the hypericum is a really good one.
Because it works on nerves.
Because it's nerve pain, right?
But it might also be
Might,
arnica, rubbing the back area with an
or a deeper
arnica
arnica, which is
massage
Bellis.
take, or bellis. So
Yeah.
there's several things, but that's also probably chronic.
Well, the thing is with sciatica is you have to work hand in hand with healing it yourself. And what the homeopathic remedies do is they help it, right? So they help move the vital force towards, because I have a belief that the whole system wants to be in balance. And so if you're taking hypericum or whatever remedy works, like George said, Bellis or arnica or ruta, but hypericum especially, and you're also doing some exercise and you're also resting and you're also, doing other things, then that's moving you. So you have to look at the whole picture and not get out of the allopathic thinking of, oh, I can just take a pill and then everything will be better. You have to do a whole holistic approach, right? Does that help? Jason, do you think that it helps her?
I think so, Lena. Yeah, it was a nice answer.
She can ask me more. I'm also a yoga teacher, so I would be happy to help her more with sciatica if she wants.
He says, thank you very much. This is great information. Well, I want to thank you both very much for a comprehensive session. It was very enjoyable. I learned a lot myself. Thank you for everyone for joining in the chat. I hope that you got your questions answered. I dropped Jeanne's email in the chat. You can also find contact information at the back of the program book. Thank you again, Jeanne and George, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Stay safe, and everyone else stay safe as well. Be well.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you, Jason.